Welcome to season 2 of buying and selling computers until I can move out. My goal is to get to $20,000 eventually, but in this season, my goal is just to get to $10,000, starting with $5,000, and it's a combination of episodes 7 through 13. There will be timestamps for all this stuff, so feel free to skip through it. There are a ton of cool stories, a ton of cool builds. You guys know how buying on Facebook Marketplace is, so without further ado, let's get to 10,000. Welcome to episode 7 of flipping gaming computers up until I can move out. The special number I am targeting here is $20,000 and I'm about a fourth of the way there. With that being said, let's see how the market has treated us so far. Remember that in the last episode I said that the market was a bit slow? Well, it still is. I currently have 6 computers listed. However, in the last episode I had 7, meaning that we did get one sale. Let's save that for later because I have 2 interesting computers that I need to talk to you guys about and I purchased since the last episode. Starting off with this build right here, I originally found this computer listed on OfferUp. However, it was at an outrageous price of $1,200 and these were the parts it had. So it had a Ryzen 9 9900X and an RTX 4060. Now, if this computer had a stronger GPU like an RTX 4070 or an 3080, it would definitely justify that price tag. However, it did not. But wait, there was one element I forgot to tell you guys about, and that is that it included all the peripherals like the monitor, the keyboard, the mouse. But trust me, I do not need any more of those items. So I threw out the bold offer of $800 for the computer alone, and of course I got rejected on the spot. Instead, he told me that he could do $950 but had to sell everything along with it. And that was how the conversation ended. But a couple hours went by and then he told me he could meet me at $800. And that is why I have the computer right here, so let's talk about it a little bit more. One of the first things I noticed about the case was that it was really clean, and I mean literally and visually, but I still went in and cleaned it out myself. And because it looks so nice, I didn't think it would need much work to it. Thought it would be some changes to cables, some organization, and that is where I messed up. Because the cable management wasn't really the best. It took me a lot longer than I'd expect. After finishing up the cable management for the case, I went in and installed some cable extension. However, I did not install it for the graphics card, and I'll explain in a bit. If you guys remember, this computer originally had the RTX 4060, but with the 9900X, it doesn't really make sense to pair a CPU that strong with the RTX 4060. And I was lucky because I had this 3090 laying around, and it worked out perfectly. However, there was one thing I couldn't find, and that was like these custom cable extensions for the RTX 3090. And that was because RTX 3090 and 3090 Ti have different cables, and the RTX 3090 Ti and forward have the newer cable that is actually easy to find. You could find these modded out pretty much everywhere, but the 3090 was kind of like the middle ground where they were transitioning from the older power cable up to the newer one, so it was hard to find a braided cable of this, so I just decided to keep it as is. But with that being said, that is how we got here. I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but this case is actually from Corsair, and this computer right here actually also happens to be Corsair. However, it is half the size of the other one. But the $1 million question is, did I get it for half the price? Let's see what this old man has to say.
Oh, hell no! That's oh, hell no!
I actually ended up paying around the same amount, and as far as parts, this one has a Ryzen 7 5700X and came with an RX 7800 XT. Similar to the last computer though, I actually found it on OfferUp and it was listed at $950, so I threw out the bold offer of $700. And of course, you know, I got rejected again, but I kept talking to him and he offered me a motherboard combo. However, I didn't really have a need for it, so that's where the conversation ended. But after a couple days, he messaged me back saying if I was still interested in the computer. I told him I was, and then he told me he'd be able to do $750 instead of the $700 I offered. And I told him that was fine, and he offered to bring it to me so I can test it out here. Thankfully, everything went well, and I even had a great conversation with him. Now, if the last computer was annoying to organize, this one was on a whole nother level. But before I got to organizing it, I got to cleaning it first. And while cleaning, I actually found a lot of interesting features and problems. Starting off with this. So the buyer had installed this custom-made Call of Duty panel that kind of lights up and is connected through ARGB. However, let's be honest, if you're trying to sell a computer, No. So this is gonna end up getting banned or given away. As far as problems, when I was testing the computer out with the guy, he told me that the USB-C would not work properly and that it only gave out power but cannot transfer files with it. And I discovered why this was an issue as soon as I opened the computer up to clean it. So when I opened up the computer, I noticed that it had this interesting adapter to it. And this is basically a splitter for the USB connection for your computer. And what these do is basically connect to the front case. So your case has a cable running through your computer and then you connect it to the header that goes to your motherboard. But this header actually split it into two connections, as you can see. But what was interesting is that he had this on there as well. So it was a splitter for two USBs. I'm not sure if you guys can see. But on one end, he put another adapter that was actually for USB-C. Let me tell you guys, there's a reason why regular USBs and USB-Cs have different connectors. To start with, I think they require different amounts of power. And I know for a fact they actually transfer files at different speeds. USB-Cs are way faster, and that is why they have their own connections. But anyway, I actually left the adapter on there because I thought to myself, okay, it only gives power, but at the end of the day, it's always useful to have like a USB-C to charge your phone or something. So I left it on there, but as I was testing it, I noticed that whenever I had the USB-C connected to it, it would not turn on like at all. Like it would stay stuck in the screen right here. But as soon as I disconnected the USB-C from there, it actually booted up perfectly. Another interesting symptom that I found was that only one of the two regular USBs could actually transfer files when they were both being used. So that is when I decided to call it a day and took out this adapter from the computer. And after that, it worked perfectly. And I know it's a bit annoying to not have a USB-C on your computer nowadays, but in case the buyer actually needs one, there's always one in the back of the motherboard. Another thing that concerned me was the way the fans were actually set up. So this computer originally had 3 intake in the front and 3 intake on the side, meaning that it was getting like no exhaust. So in that case, if your computer is only pulling in air, your computer is bound to get hot. That's why I couldn't understand, like when I was testing out the computer, it was fine, but I don't know if it's just because of the way it's designed, but in a normal computer, your computer would be fried or literally running hot. So what I ended up doing was actually swapping the orientation of the fans. However, after swapping them out, I noticed that one fan stood out from the rest when it was lit up. So that kind of pissed me off, and I ended up swapping those fans completely on the side and put up some Thermalright fans on here. Now this next problem I addressed has nothing to do with performance, but is one of a PC builder's worst nightmare: organization, or in other words, cable management.
Oh no! Oh no!
Yeah, it was pretty bad, especially if you don't have raccoon-like fingers like
the greatest technician that's ever lived.
Luckily, you guys don't have to deal with it and get to see this cool transition instead. So what do you guys think about it? Do you guys think I'll make it out the hood with this cable management? I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty proud of it myself. However, there was one thing I forgot to tell you guys. Now this computer had this RX 7800 XT. However, for a Ryzen 7 5700X, it simply does not make sense. So I took the RTX 4060 that I took off from the computer over here and swapped it into this computer. With all those changes though, here's how it came out. Take a look at this computer right here. As you can tell, it is clearly empty, but in the last episode, it was actually filled up. It had all of the pieces and all of that stuff. So why is it empty when I clearly said this?
So what exactly do I plan to do with the computer? Well, at first I wanted to swap this whole case because this is a Lienli 011 Vision, which is a really nice case. As you can see, it has 3 side panels of glass. But then I thought about it, I'm gonna waste 2 to 3 hours swapping the parts, when in reality, the difference between a cheaper case and this Lienli is like $50. So I'm just gonna skip out on that.
Well, I completely changed my mind about it, and I chose to swap the case anyway.
Why? 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 Why?
This was because I knew I was gonna pay a lot of money to install some nice fans on there, but I wouldn't be able to add that amount to the price tag because the parts in there weren't too crazy to begin with. Or let me explain it this way. So with higher end components, the better you make it look, the more you'll be able to price and the higher your return on parts like fans, like cases and all that. But when you have a lower end build and you choose to make it look really nice, the return on your investment for the price you paid for it is not as high, or at least that's the way I've learned to see it. So let me know if you have a different opinion about that. Another big reason I swapped out the case was actually that I found a deal on this NZXT H5 Flow, which I got for around $65 total after taxes and all of that. So I thought it was a good opportunity to just get it swapped. So I went in and I swapped out the parts bit by bit. And as I was swapping out the parts, I remember that the seller told me that the motherboard was actually a special edition of this older anime called Gundam. And I honestly have no clue what it is. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know if you guys have any clue what it is, but I was curious to see if it maybe fetch a good amount on eBay or something. Because, you know, if I got a good amount for it, you know, I'm selling it on the spot.
Here we go.
But no, that wasn't the case. At most, it was probably going for $150, so I chose to just continue to swap the parts into the case. And eventually ended with this. So the next purchase I want to talk to you guys about isn't really a computer, but rather a tool I've been meaning to buy. So let me just show you guys real quick. So we are currently in my car and we are actually cooking up. Might have a heat stroke out here. No windows down or anything because I wanted to do this quick little clip. But anyways, here's what I wanted to show you guys, right? So this is my car, as I was saying, you know, have it kind of clean. But back here, we actually have something special. So it might look like a regular trash bag, but wait, you see that? Anchor Solix. Let me explain what that is inside because I've literally been here for a minute and I'm already pretty much sweating pretty badly, so I'll see you guys inside. So what you guys saw in my car is what they call an Anchor Solix C100. And it's basically like a big power bank. You might be thinking, why the hell would you buy this big power bank? Like, are you camping or something? Or what do you need it for? So let me explain. So I buy most of my parts locally, and that usually means that I have to test it out in person at their house or in their setup. And a lot of people are not cool with this, or sometimes they might not want you to test out their parts because they're scamming. So that is sometimes true. But for the people that care about their safety, I understand it. And over time, I wouldn't want people walking into my house and testing out computers here. So that is why I bought this power bank. And with this power bank, it basically lets me test out computers for a little bit of time, definitely not anything longer than an hour, and can basically meet up anywhere, like at a Walmart, at a Target, or any place that's local to them. And as far as how long it might last, here's an example of my personal computer that pulls around 450 watts ish at full load, but it is undervolted, I will say that, but it pulls around 450 watts. And it told me that it will last around 2 hours. So that means if a system is more on the higher end and is pulling that 800 watts or 1000 watt, I'll get little less than an hour of runtime on it. And that is more than enough and all I really need to see if a system works. But yeah, this power bank will hopefully get me more deals. So now that we've talked about the purchases, we can actually talk about the sales. So as you guys know, I got a single sale, and let me explain how it happened. I got a message around a week ago from a guy that was interested in this computer I purchased in episode 5. It had a Ryzen 7 7800X GD and an RTX 3090. And the one thing he asked was that he wanted to make sure that it was running properly and didn't have any issues. So I told him that we could just stress it out at my house. And so he came and then we ran multiple stress tests on it to make sure everything was running properly for him. And in the meantime, we were having a conversation. I mean, you can't just stand here and just sit awkwardly. Just having them here, you got to talk to him a little bit. And so I told him that he would benefit a lot from an undervolt, especially with an RTX 3090. I mean, those cards are literally known for like pulling 400 watts off rip. So I told him that he would get a massive return if he undervolted it a bit. And then eventually he asked me, he was like, could you just do that for me? And then I was like, yeah. And so I watched the tutorial while he was literally here. And I got that undervolt set up for him. So hopefully that improves the temperatures, power consumption, and overall longevity of his card. But with that being said, how much did we profit from it? So I sold the computer for $1,850 and I paid around $1,300 and something. The exact amount will be put here. And as far as changes to it, I cleaned it out. I swapped the cooler, installed cable extensions, did all the cable management again. And in total, this ended up profiting me $504 and put around 7 hours of work into it. And I'll put all the little breakdowns for both the price along with the time spent on it. With that being said, here's the total profit of the series so far. And as I told you guys in the beginning, we're around a fourth of the way there. And we definitely have a lot of work cut out for us. So if you guys have been enjoying the series, please do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe if possible. If you disliked it or there's something about the video that was annoying, feel free to hit the button on the opposite side and let me know as well. And with that being said, peace out. How can I get more sales? Drop the prices, dummy. It's 4th of July. All right, let's give it a shot. We have way too much stock right now, so I decided to have a 4th of July sale. Unfortunately, one of the computers I sold is having issues with the graphics card, so I might have to take a loss here. Yeah, he literally just ignored my message, so we're probably not gonna get that money back.
We're not rich! We're broke!
This is episode 8 of Flipping PCs until I can move out of my parents' house. Trust me, I'll hit that backflip before the end of the series. No, bro, move. No. With that out of the way, I recently had a ton of stock, so I needed to strategize and find a way to get more sales. And the way I conducted the sale wasn't as simple as just dropping the price on the listing, but instead announced the sale on Facebook groups along with Instagram. And in the end, it did extremely well and it really did surprise me. For reference, I usually get around 2,000 visits to my Instagram's business page, but with this sale, I actually had 3,000, which was like a 50% increase, which is pretty insane. And I wanted to ask you guys, how much do you guys think I sold? Was it 1 computer, 2 computers, 5 computers, or 0 computers? Well, it was 3, and I'm pretty glad because it's been kind of slow recently, but at the same time, I know I haven't put nearly as much effort as I should have, so that plays its role in it as well. But anyways, here are the 3 computers that I sold. Starting off with this one right here. So this was a computer that I built in the last episode, and it's kind of insane how fast it sold, but it kind of makes sense at the same time because it had a lot of clicks on it and it also had a ton of saves on it. So it makes sense. And my theory to this was at first, the price was actually really good. Second, the case is actually kind of trending right now. And to top it off, the lighting was honestly amazing. And yeah, so in case I need to build another computer, you guys know which type of case I'm gonna go for. The next computer I sold was within this 4th of July discount. However, the discount did not apply. This was because the computer wasn't over $1,000, so I couldn't really drop the price for him anymore. What was interesting about this sale was that I didn't even get it posted before it sold, and I'll explain why. But before we do, we actually need to talk about it because you guys don't even know about it yet. So around a week ago, I was at the gym hitting legs, and in between my sets, I either 1, doom scroll to infinity, 2, talk to ChatGPT about my workout plan, and 3, look for deals on OfferUp or Facebook Marketplace. And I happened to be checking out OfferUp when I found this gem right here. It was a computer with an i7-10700K along with an RX 6700 non-XT. He had it listed for $500, but you guys know me, I love to negotiate. I sent him the offer of $400 flat, and as I was walking to the leg extension machine, I hear the little notification the OfferUp tends to show you, and he accepted it. So literally within 40 minutes, I had found a deal, negotiated a deal, and went to go pick it up. And as soon as I got there, I made sure to test out the computer thoroughly, and everything went well besides one little issue. So as I was running OCCT and Furmark, I noticed that the GPU was only pulling 130 watts or so, and this was really low because the RX 6700 is supposed to pull 175 watts or something like that, and it was a little suspicious. So I continued doing my research to see if maybe it was something wrong with the card or something with this specific model, you know? We couldn't find anything while I was there. So the last thing I decided to do was just make sure to run it on TimeSpy, make sure that the score wasn't too far off from what it's supposed to. And it definitely did underperform like compared to other computers with similar components, but it was weird because the graph had another spike, but it wasn't too far off, so I was still okay with purchasing it. But of course, with this small flaw, I decided to negotiate further with the guy, and we ended up agreeing at $360 for it. That's how I ended with this build right here. But wait, this was a great deal, but there was another thing that actually surprised me about this purchase. So as I was leaving, the guy actually helped me take the computer outside, and he actually told me that he checked out the channel, which was pretty surreal because this was probably the first time that anyone that I didn't really know checked out the channel and told me in person, you know, so it's pretty insane and interesting, you know. It's my first time experience, you know. But yeah, so if you're watching this right now, thank you for giving me that deal, and thank you for checking out that channel, man. Means a lot. As far as the actual card, I actually went deep into the rabbit hole and eventually found that somebody had reviewed this exact card on Reddit, and in the review it said, and I quote, "Power consumption seems to be pegged at 138 watts according to MSI Afterburner, and I pretty much never saw the card exceed this amount." Now that 138 watt limit was exactly what I was experiencing with my card, so at this point I knew that there was nothing wrong with the card. With that being said, I gotta give credit to the dude that wrote the post, because it's people like him that really do help out a lot in the community. He took the time out of his day to do it, and he didn't have to, and it really does help. The upvotes truly do not lie. So now that we talked about the actual computer, we can actually talk about how I ended up getting it sold without ever posting it online. So a while back, I had posted some of my computers on Craigslist, and the issue with Craigslist is that if you post your Instagram handle on there, it will get banned. So literally all of my posts got banned except two. These two listings had my Instagram handle, and someone had actually gone through and then messaged me through Instagram saying that they saw these posts on Craigslist. But unfortunately, he messaged me for a computer that I just sold, but I told him I had some other listings that I still haven't posted on Craigslist, and so he liked one of them, but he did tell me that he had a tighter budget, so if he had something better for him, then he'd be more than open to hear the options, you know. And I told him that I just got this computer that I was just telling you guys about. Now at this point, I had already tested out the computer again and gone through the loophole and found that there was nothing wrong with the card, so I was more than comfortable selling the computer. But I did tell him that I was planning to swap the RAM sticks on there because they were just straight black, and RGB sticks I think would look way better on the build. But he told me he didn't mind and preferred performance over aesthetics, so I told him that I'd be willing to let it go for $700. And that is when he stopped by, he checked it out, and he took the computer along with the 144 Hz monitor that I believe I let go for $40. So in the end, it was $740 for a computer and a monitor for him. It's a pretty good deal for him. Now let's talk about the third build that I sold, and this was actually a build that I featured in the last episode. It was a white build that had the i5-10600K along with the RTX 3060. I had the computer listed for $800, however the buyer that actually purchased it from me originally offered $600, and then $700, and then $750. And then finally he was like, all right, let's do $800. So he stopped by, and he was also looking for all the peripherals like the mouse, the keyboard, the monitor, and all that. And he was lucky because I was the right guy and was stocked to the brim with all those items. And so in the end, he left with the HyperX mouse, a Logitech keyboard, an ASUS 1440p monitor for $930. Oh, and one thing, a beautiful white PC, of course. With that in mind, how much have we profited from these three sales? $1,347, or at least that's how much it should have been. Let me explain. Unfortunately, the first computer that I sold was having issues with the graphics card. So my client had reached out and told me that he had used the card for about a day, and after when he tried to post it, the screen would just glitch out as soon as he put it under load, and then that the RTX logo would not turn on from there, or even post after that. And I'm not gonna lie, this didn't sound foreign to me at all, and I have experienced this exact issue with the card. In fact, I spent multiple gruesome hours troubleshooting this card and kept writing it off because there was always some little change that for some reason would get the card fixed. So let's start from the beginning. So when I first purchased the card, I tried running the graphics card on two computers with the same motherboard, but unfortunately it never posted. And so I had reached out to the seller, and he told me to try a different computer with a different motherboard, and for whatever reason it worked on the other computer. From there, I basically concluded that it had to be some type of compatibility issue, even though there was literally nothing written about this online or anywhere. I mean, when have you heard that a motherboard is incompatible with a certain graphics card? It just doesn't really exist, or if anything, it's not common at all. And then for the next time I had to troubleshoot the card, it was actually when I was building this computer right here. And the plan with this build was to vertically mount the graphics card, and I experienced some similar symptoms. When I first booted up the computers, installed all the drivers and Windows, after putting a bit of stress on the graphics card, it literally just glitched out, and then the RTX logo would remain off. So at this point, I spent like some more hours just troubleshooting, trying to figure out what was wrong, because I knew the graphics card, I knew that the graphics card was working, but it just wouldn't. So I was just baffled, and in the end, I texted the seller again to see if he had any recommendations, and if not, I would just have to conclude that something wrong with the card. And he told me that he vaguely remembered that the cards were known to have issues with certain type of vertical mounts. And so I took his advice, even though I was pretty hesitant, and for whatever reason, the GPU regularly mounted onto the computer worked perfectly. And I made sure that it didn't give me the issue as soon as I put stress onto it. And I ran it on OCCT along with Firmark for like an hour or so with literally no issues at all. So at this point I was like, okay, there's probably some type of compatibility issue again with that vertical mount. But the thing was, I couldn't use that graphics card on that build now because the plan was to get it vertically mounted. Otherwise the build would look funky because the motherboard was a micro ATX. But now I can confirm there's definitely something funky up with this card. And I made sure to apologize to the buyer, and he was so understanding, and I tried my best to apologize multiple times, but obviously that apology isn't gonna cut it because he has a broken graphics card, you know? So I gave him 3 options. First was to give him his money back with an additional payment of $100 for the inconvenience. So I would pay him $1,550. The second option was that I could swap out the card for an RTX 4070 Ti Super that I had in another build, but would cost him an additional $100. The third option was an RX 7800 XT, but instead I would pay him $150 for the difference between the value of the cards. And so he ended up telling me that he really loved the computer and really did want to keep it, and decided to go with RTX 4070 Ti Super that I had in another build. And so we arranged a date for him to come by so I could swap it out for him. Mind you, this wasn't the end of the story because I had to order a cable that the RTX 4070 Ti Super needs for the power supply. And Jeff Bezos literally pulled a fast one on me because Amazon literally shipped out every package that I had ordered on Prime Day except for the cable that I needed for my client. And it wasn't delayed or anything. No, it was literally missing from the package. It was supposed to come in with these cable extensions, but in the package there was literally nothing else. So I had to explain this to my client, and we had to delay it a day further. But again, he understood, and we met up the next day and we got his card swapped out. Now, when he came by, I was ready to swap out like the card from his computer, but he actually told me that he just brought the card and he would do the work for it at home. And he told me not to worry about it, but he actually just brought me the card and said that he would swap it out himself. But even though I didn't get this card swapped, we actually ended up talking for like 3 hours outside, and he ended up being quite the stand-up guy, you know? He's a great guy. He told me a lot about himself and he learned a lot about me. So it was definitely a pleasure talking and working with him. In case you ever check out this video, I again apologize for that inconvenience. And the next time I suspect issues with the graphics card like this one, I will make sure to run it 2 consecutive days with 2 hours of straight benchmarks. That way I have a higher chance of knowing if there's something really wrong with the card. With that, the profit definitely drops down by a staggering amount, and it totals up to $1,047. But at the same time, that doesn't factor in the loss of the actual card, so keep that in mind. And because the card continued to give me issues, I decided to contact the seller to see if he could maybe give me a partial refund for the card. And I basically gave him an explanation of the situation, the post where I actually sold the computer, the messages that I actually had with my client. So after sending all of that, he literally responded by saying that the computer looks nice and glad that it worked out in the end. And so he basically didn't read the first message at all. So I had to respond back and told him that no, that there was actually something wrong with the card, and I tried to explain it all in the first message. And after that, he had said, oh, I didn't see it. He read it, I guess, up to a certain point. And then this is how we responded. So yeah, I'm not getting my money back for sure. But it's not the end of the world because he gave me a really good deal for the computers that I purchased from him. And at the same time, I know I'll definitely make a lot of my money back if I even sell it for parts on eBay. So it's not the biggest deal in the world. And on top of that, it's an older dude, and I really do believe that he had no intentions of giving me a faulty card. And even after telling him that I responded with that message, I still doubt that he went through the whole message. And it is what it is. On a high note, let's talk about some of the new inventory. Now this was a computer I pretty much built from scratch, and it has a mix of new and used components. Now I really do love the way it came out. I think the vertical mount makes it look really nice. But if I was really picky, the only thing that really annoyed me was the cooler, because on Amazon it shows this. It's like a silverish, darkish accent, you know, metallic type of thing. But when you actually start to take photos and look at it nicely, it looks more of like a bronze color, which kind of threw off the whole color scheme I was going for. Because as you guys can see, it's like black and silvers. That kind of annoyed me, and it's kind of on me because I literally just looked at the photos and didn't go too deeply into the reviews or videos on it. So I know I could have done better there. So XFX's GPUs usually have a white LED, and the issue with these white LEDs is that they're really bright, and the white that they choose to light up the strip is actually like a bluish, like purplish tone, and I think it looks hideous. Another problem is you can't disable it through software. You can't change the color like some of the other models. So what I did was actually unplug the LED from the card and then reassembled the whole card myself. And in the end, here's how it came out. Next two computers I purchased are actually two pre-builts with fairly similar parts. So basically both of these computers have an i9-13900K along with an RTX 4080, and I got this one for $1,200 and I got the next pre-built over here for $1,100. As far as interesting features, of course, we got the interesting Alienware case. I mean, these are pretty cool, but I really hated disassembling this and cleaning it out because it was a pain. I mean, you literally had to take out screw after screw to just remove a front panel, unlike the one over here where you can literally just pop it out. Guys, see this little top thing right here on the case? It took me quite a bit of time to figure out. Apparently I just had to pop this out and then pull it out. Slides out like a charm. But anyways, what do you guys think about the Alienware cases? I think this is pretty sick, but if you look internally into these cases and these computers, it seems like they cheap out on quite a bit of things, but you know, it's really how it looks outside, which is important, and what sells, you know? But anyways, the next pre-built is obviously not made by Alienware. This is actually Main's gear, and this was actually the Shroud. If you guys watch Twitch a lot or watch a lot of streamers, you guys will probably know who Shroud is. And so he basically had a collab with Main's gear, and this was their collab piece. And this is what's interesting about the case. So you can pop this out and it has like a little pin out right here, and basically this on the outside lights it up, and then this in the middle lights up as well. So that's pretty cool, and you can't even buy customizable plates on their website, which is pretty interesting and at the same time innovative. As I told you guys, this did have the i9 along with the RTX 4080, but where's it at? It's right here. So I just took it out because I'm planning to put it onto another computer, and it did have this bracket right here. As you guys can see, this was actually hooked on and screwed down to the actual computer, and it was meant for stability. And of course, with any computer that I buy used, I actually go in and clean them out myself, and that Alienware, as I told you guys, was an absolute pain to clean. This one not too much, it was fine, but we got that done. And after cleaning out the computers, I actually made a couple changes to the Alienware over here to get it ready for sale. And those changes were actually simply just installing the Intel bracket and swapping out the thermal paste on the CPU. Now, I was gonna swap out the RAM because the RAM kit that's on these Alienware is stock 4800 megahertz RAM. And the motherboard was rated up to the 5600 megahertz level. However, if you wanna get that speed, you literally have to buy the RAM from that company, which is Dell, and they just tax. Like, if you want a 64 gigabyte kit of 5600 megahertz, you're gonna pay damn near $400. And for a 16 gigabyte kit of 5600 megahertz, it was like $200, which is absurd. Shouldn't have to do that, and they should have made it so any RAM kit or style should work perfectly, just like any other manufacturer would. For example, this one, I can literally swap this RAM kit for any other one as long as it's within the speed that they accept, you know? And while I didn't finish this computer and still thinking about what I'm deciding to do with it, I actually did finish the Alienware, and here's how it came out. Boom! Enjoyed this episode of today's series. I got a feeling you might like this one as well. This was the last episode where I found my first mini PC, and this one back here will be my second one, but that will be until next time. Thank you for watching. I want to move out of my parents' house by the end of the year.
And pack in my bag.
And to do that, I need to make $20,000. My plan? Flip gaming PCs. Here's where I stand right now, and it is not looking too good. So with that in mind, I got right to work. In early July, I spent most of my time just glued to Facebook Marketplace, and I'm not gonna lie, it has never been easier to find a deal. I mean, there were computers that were listed for over 1,000 plus literally months ago, now finally dropping down to the triple digits. Could this mean our economy is on the brink of collapse? Who knows? But what I did know is that this might be my golden opportunity, and let me tell you, I went crazy. Good deal over there, where's the address? Where you at? Good deal over there, that's mine too. And within a single month, I managed to pick up 6 different gaming PCs. Starting off with this NZXT pre-built listed for $950. And the thing about this pre-built was that I seen it listed for a while now, so I knew there was a high chance that he'd take less for it. And so I threw out my half-core shot attempt. And
That's the one.
it hit. Let's go, man. And so I went to go check it out, and it worked phenomenally. After purchasing this PC, I spent 7 days vigorously looking for deals, but unfortunately my half-core shots weren't hitting like before, and so I had to look elsewhere, and that elsewhere happened to be Facebook groups. You see, if you live in a larger city, there are basically groups for everything. That last one is pretty famous among the Hispanic community, and it literally translates to the flea market where everything is for sale, including your mother-in-law. And of course, there's a group for PCs as well. And as I was looking through the group's group chat, I noticed that someone was trying to sell their mini PC with the 5800X, the motherboard, the power supply, the case, the RAM, but without a graphics card, without an SSD, and the case was allegedly banged up for $350. Now at first I passed on it, but after a couple days, I finally saw that he sent another message, but this time he was saying $250 to anybody that can pick it up. And I sent a message, and so we arranged an agreement here, and he stopped by my house where I tested it out and pulled out my GTX 1050 to test it. Thankfully, everything went well, and we scored another mini deal. Get it? Because it's a mini PC. After buying these 2 computers, I got them both clean, but after doing so, I still kept my eyes peeled for deals. The thing was, I found myself in a different situation. Instead of buying a computer, I actually found myself selling one. You see, I got messaged by somebody that was interested in one of my listings, and this PC had a Ryzen 7 7800 XT along with the 9070 XT listed for $1,900. But as crazy as those parts are, that is actually not the highlight of the PC. The highlight is actually its size, because this case is massive, man. It was massive. And you might be thinking, man, it must be cool to have a massive PC, but the thing is, that is not the case. See, bigger is not always better, because most people would prefer one that is smaller so you can easily move it around, clean it, have less room to take up with it. Because of this, I eventually had to drop the price down to $1,900, and that was when I got messaged by this guy. And thankfully, he bought it from me and finally got rid of the big boy. In total, this PC ended up costing me $1,490, 6 hours of time, $10 in gas, and that left us with a profit of $400. Not bad, big boy, not bad. After this sale, about a week went by with no action. I didn't buy, didn't clean, didn't sell. It was just dry. So I finally decided to relist this computer with an i9-14900K in a height Y60 case. You see, I've had this computer listed for a while, but recently a client of mine reached out saying that the card on their PC that they bought for me was having issues. So I offered the card in this build as a replacement for his RTX 3090. That left me with a PC without a graphics card, but you remember that white PC I bought earlier with the RTX 5070? Well, I think that 5070 would fit perfectly in this build, and that is exactly what I ended up doing. And on top of that, I also painted the cap on the AIO black just because I don't like the logo just sitting right there in the middle of the AIO. And I'm glad I did, because here's how it came out. After being a bit patient, I found another deal, but this time it wasn't for the PC alone. I managed to find this setup on OfferUp. However, the main thing I was looking at was a PC, and it had a Ryzen 7 9700X along with the 5070 Ti. Now the bad part is almost always the listing price, and it was no exception here because he had it listed for like $1,800. You know me, I love those half-core needle in the haystack Instagram DM shots, and it worked because I was on my way to go check out this PC. Luckily, everything went well and the computer tested fine, but as I was bringing it back home, I decided to not use a card for this PC. Now don't get me wrong, the 9700X is like a really good processor, but it just wouldn't pair well with the 5070 Ti. Instead, I think one of those X3D chips would make this so much easier to sell, and that's the plan as of right now. But man, after taking it out, that card looked nice, man. Almost became the drug dealer that couldn't stay away from his own product. I mean, just take a look at that carbon fiber, man. Those little touches of white. Bro, what? This card is nice, not to mention, look at how thick it is, man. But you know, I had to stay strong and resisted the urges. Talking about graphics cards, now that we've taken out that 5070 from the white PC we bought earlier, we are now left with a PC without a graphics card again. And so I was on the lookout for a card, trying to get like a 4070 Ti, something along those lines to pair up with the 9600X. And that is when I eventually stumbled across this RTX 4070. He had it listed for 450 and then haggled him down to 400. And then I went to go check it out, tested it, everything worked well. To be honest, this card wasn't the best deal out there. I probably should have haggled him even further because over here you could get like a 3080 for like 350, and that would be similar if not the same performance. But hey, at least the card looks really good and sort of that card out for the white PC. After purchasing this computer, I received a message from one of my clients that I had sold 2 computers to a couple years back. Back then he had purchased one for himself and one for his girlfriend. But now the unplugged controller method was no longer working on his little brother. So he reached out and I showed him the options that I had in his price range. And in the end, he really liked this mini PC that I bought in episode 7. And he told me that he would let me know if he was interested by the end of the week. Little did he know that he might end up regretting that decision, because the day after, someone messaged me about that mini PC and was standing on business, because that same night he stopped by and picked it up after he took his grandkids to the water park. And just like that, it was gone. So from here, I slowly started to panic. I don't think he liked the other computer, so will he be annoyed about this? What will I do when the weekend comes around? I feel bad, but what should I do? I know.
I may not have a brain, gentlemen, but I have an idea.
I'll find another PC that he'll like by the end of the week. And while I didn't find a PC for my customer just yet, I found a golden opportunity. And by gold, I'm talking about a gold mine. Let me explain. You see, past purchases have been for gaming PCs with some peripherals here and there. However, this one is different because it literally had everything in the sky. As you guys can see, it was originally listed for 1800 and eventually he dropped down to 1250. So it had a 4070 Ti, a 7700X, which is a really good combo, still a very strong combo to be honest. He included basically everything else as far as peripherals, the Logitech G815, a ton of peripherals, right? Pretty high-end components. I know this headset alone goes for like at least $100, and a 32-inch 165 hertz monitor. This is already an insanely good deal. Now this part went completely past me. When I got there, I was like, whoa, it's including this too? I didn't even read down there, but he included a 4000D case, a cooler, a microphone, and some speakers. I was like, this has to be a scam, right? Luckily, it was all legit, and on top of the items that you saw in the bottom there, I got even more, but more on that later. Because after I tested it out, the next hard part was actually bringing it downstairs. Now, because there were so many items to bring downstairs, he actually helped me out, and we took multiple trips going down. And then I clearly remember that as we were transferring them down, his dad was just there in the couch in the first floor just watching television. And then it was probably like 4 or 5 trips. He was like, dang, are you taking the TV as well? And I was like, yes, everything. He was just joking, obviously. And then I finally got to loading things onto my little Scion. And then of course we hit the road back home. Now remember, I still needed to buy another computer because one of my customers was still going to be looking for one for his little brother. So I still remained vigilant and kept looking for PCs here and there. And then as we were approaching the weekend, a miracle hit because I managed to find, negotiate, and pick up this Lianli PC. But that's where the good news ends, because this PC actually had some issues. And to start, it was just nasty, bro. It was so bad that I even had to make an appointment with the Gooch collector. And then shortly after, the next problem came in. You see, after I finished cleaning everything up, I was like, all right, let's get right to testing because the dude's gonna hit me up real soon, right? And then as soon as I tested it, man, the CPU was running hotter than the deserts of Dubai, so. At that point, I knew something was wrong, either with the thermal paste or the cooler itself. And I figured out what was going on when I touched the tube. You see, when you touch the tubing on a liquid cooler, one side is supposed to feel a bit warmer, but it shouldn't be like a drastic difference, especially when your PC isn't like under full load or running for a while. The thing with this one is that it was a crazy difference and I could be doing absolutely nothing. I just turned it off, turned it on, and the water was still really hot. So at that point, I knew there was something wrong with the cooler and had to replace it. But then finally a sign of hope, because you remember how we picked up that PC earlier that had a bunch of parts? Well, if you have a keen eye, you remember that it had a thermalrized CPU cooler, and this is exactly what came in clutch. So I got it installed, and thankfully it worked well, because imagine I just installed it and then it didn't work. But no, it worked good. But there was one thing that was off. You see the cooler has a Thermalright logo, but the thing about the logo was that it was like off-centered, and this pissed me off. So at the end I just unplugged the RGB in general. And this left like a mirror effect kind of thing. It's basically a mirror, that's what it is. And then with the cooling out of the way, we finally got some solid testing and temperatures. And then my customer texted saying, hey, I'd like to pick up the mini PC. And I was like, oh, my bad, I sold it. But here I have another computer that you might like even more. And to not so much of a surprise, he actually liked the Lian Li PC more than the mini PC we had before. So thankfully it all worked out in the end. But which one would you choose if you had to pick one? I'll tell you what I'll pick. That Lian Li after the cleaning though, because before, After telling me this over the text, he stopped by and picked up the computer and left happy. So mission passed. At this point, I have bought so many computers, but literally have a few listed right now. That is why I decided to finally wrap up that white PC from earlier and get that 4070 installed. The 4070 wasn't the only thing I changed though, because the only reason I waited so long to install the card was because the PC was still missing 2 front fans. This obviously made the computer look awkward, so I looked in my inventory and found a spare fan, however was still missing a single one. Because of this, I decided to order one from eBay. As I was waiting for the fans, I also ordered some cable extensions, and that is a must if you care about aesthetics. From there, I got both of them installed, and here's how it came out. So this whole episode has been a bit slow, you know, I'm talking about computers, picking them up, and it's been repetitive, but now it's time to switch up the pace and kick up the dopamine levels for the brain rot kids in the back. So keep your seatbelts buckled because this is gonna be fast. So in the last episode, I had a client of mine return an RTX 3090 that was giving him issues. He said that it would crash but was random at best, and once it did not boot for a while. He also noted the temperatures were extremely cool, but I had no idea what was causing the issue. Now recently, I've been having issues with my own PC. This eventually led me to repaste my personal card, and while I was at it, I was like, I might as well open up the 3090. The original seller of the card told me that he had repasted the card himself, so I doubted this would be the issue. But I'm glad I did because you won't believe what I found. When I opened up the card, there was literally a single small plastic that was left on the thermal pad. Mira. Bro. This was causing the odd issues, and since then I have been using the card for a month and has worked perfectly. Wow, I just saved myself $150. Now that we've talked about all the PCs, we can finally crunch some numbers, because in this episode we actually made a decent amount of profit, but at the same time wasted a ton of cash because of how much we purchased. So for this episode, the total profit ends up coming to this. It makes us one step closer to moving out. As far as the amount I've spent, well, let's not talk about that right now. Till next episode, peace out. I want to move out of my parents' house by the end of the year, and to do that I need to make $20,000. So to get there, I will flip gaming PCs. Here's where I currently stand right now, and as you can tell, I don't have much time to waste. To start off the week, I decided to wrap up this PC that I bought in episode 8. Now this computer came with an i9-14900K and an RTX 4080. However, something didn't seem right. You see, when I hear the words i9 or an RTX 4080, off rip I'm expecting something elegant, maybe a PC with a Lian Li or a fractal design case. But in this case, the PC looked far too plain. And if I've learned anything throughout my years of PC flipping, it is that if a high-end PC doesn't look its part, it will also be significantly harder to sell. And so to even out the scales quite a bit, I decided to downgrade the computer, starting off with the i9 down to the i7 and the 4080 down to the 4070 Ti. And while the parts were starting to coordinate with the aesthetics, it still looked a bit too basic and didn't follow the sacred laws of PC flipping. Law number 5. If a case on a PC isn't completely black or white, do not try to sell it. Alright, how could I make this front panel black instead of purple? Well, I can either order one from the Mains Gear website or paint it myself. And as much as I wanted to be lazy here, after checking the price on Mains Gear website, I was quickly humbled. $60! And so I got to painting. I'm not gonna lie, this paint job ended up coming out trash. I mean, here it is with the reflection of the sun. It looks so bad.
Luckily, I remembered that I also had some black vinyl that might work, and after several attempts, I finally got the PC to pass this law. But as much as I wanted to wrap up the PC here, Fate had some different plans, because the lighting software didn't let me change the colors on the card, or at least partially.
You see, I was able to change parts of the LED strip on the graphics card, while the rest was like a puke color. It could be from yellow to green, and this obviously made it look awful. And so I had to do a bit of investigation and opened up the card a couple times to figure out that the connector that was giving power to the LED strip was actually damaged. So in the end, I just left the RGB turned off, and it came out looking like this. Now, if you watched some of the recent episodes, you'll know that I've been purchasing a lot of gaming PCs, and this episode is unfortunately no exception. In fact, between August 8th and 13th, I purchased 3 different gaming computers ranging from this pre-built all the way to this beast. But more on that later, because this was the first computer I bought. Now, this PC is a pre-built from Skytech, and yes, it also suffers from the condition of looking plain. And by plain, I literally mean that if you look up gaming PC on Google, you'll be able to find a PC that looks the same, if not similar to this computer within a single minute. As far as parts, it had an i7-12700F along with an RTX 4070 Ti. Now, how much do you think I paid for this? I'll give you a hint. It's somewhere between $400 to $800. Well, I paid $700, and in my opinion, a very solid find. Now, the next PC that I was interested in was definitely unique, and one of the first times I've ever seen an orange PC. Yeah. But as unique as it is, that doesn't mean it will sell. So before going to check it out, I made sure that the price and the parts made sense. Duh. And knowing that I'm a master negotiator, I ended up striking a deal for $500 for this PC. As far as parts, it has an i7-12700F along with a 3070 Ti. With the cats out of the bag, we can finally move on to the beast. Now, how exactly did I land this PC? Well, I threw out my signature move, a lowball. And while I was hopeful at first, I was quickly denied. But after a really dry week, the lowball somehow made it into the net. And so I went to go check out this PC. And while I was expecting a really clean build, I wasn't expecting to visit Michael's neighborhood from GTA. For those who don't get the reference, it was a really nice neighborhood. Nevertheless, the seller was a pilot, and he let me know that he simply didn't need the computer anymore. And so while I was there, I made sure to test it thoroughly and ran my 3 trusty benchmarks. Thankfully, it all passed flawlessly, and I finally took the beast home. Now, just like you don't get a good look at your haircut at a barber shop until you get home, I also didn't get the best look at the PC until I got home. This makes me think about the saying, once you go black, you never go back. You can say that again, because ever since I blacked out my whole setup, it has only grown on me. Now, talking about parts, do you remember how the first PC didn't really align with the parts it had? Well, in this case, we don't really have that problem. In fact, we're on the opposite side of the spectrum, because not only are the parts extremely powerful, but they also look insane. And if you've been in the game long enough, you'll know exactly what this logo represents. Straight elegance, quietness, and meant for people who got that bag. Knock to she not gonna talk to you. With this in mind, this build did set us back $1,500. With all of these PCs in hand, I took a short break of buying, with the exception of this graphics card. Now, this is a Gigabyte RX 6800 XT, and the reason I purchased this was because I saw another mismatch yet again. To be specific, I was eyeing down this Skytech pre-build from earlier. Now, the i7-12700F in this build is solid, but not sales worthy of the 4070 Ti, in my opinion. And so I got the card cleaned and installed into the build. Earlier, I also mentioned that this PC was basic and it was missing spice. And so I decided to add some and had to take a trip back to kindergarten where I did some arts and crafts. See, with the power of carbon fiber vinyl, I was able to wrap the front plate on the AIO and the front cover of the power supply. But there was still a problem. You see, the kit of RAM that this computer originally came with was only 16 gigabytes, and on top of that, it was just plain silver. There was no type of RGB. And so I scoured the internet and eventually found this 32 gigabyte kit on eBay. And this was indeed the last and final ingredient to our meal. but it wouldn't arrive until later. While waiting, I received a message from somebody that had been following me on Instagram for a while, and they asked if I had any spare NZXT fans. I went to go check, and lo and behold, I had 3 waiting for him. And so he stopped by and picked them up for $10. Now you might be thinking, why the heck would we care about a $10 sale, man? We're still broke. I know, but trust me, the story is just getting started, so why don't you go grab a bag of popcorn and hit the subscribe button while you're at it. Please. And so about a day after he bought the fans for me, he told me that the screws I gave him for them weren't long enough. He was right, and I offered him to refund him his money for the fans, but he declined, and he told me he was just gonna go take a trip to Home Depot to get some screws that would fit his fans. And then another day went by, and I received yet another notification from the same buyer, but this time he had a different request. He said if I could swap his old PC case in for the Height Y70, and I told him I could, but I would charge him a hefty fee of $250. Now you might be thinking that that fee is expensive, and I'm not gonna lie, I agree. The thing is, it simply doesn't make sense for me to do a service when I can make the same amount flipping gaming PCs, especially when you consider the amount of time and hassle you have to put into these service bills. If you know, you know. I'm curious to hear your perspective though. As high as you might think that price is, it didn't end there because we negotiated a bit further. So he told me that I could keep the case in this PC, so the price from the original $250 was brought down to $180. And so the job began. And I started by giving this PC a touch of Mr. Clean. After cleaning it, I finally brought the PC back to the workbench where I started to disassemble it. After taking it apart, we can finally move on to the case. Now the case he went with was none other than the Height Y70. And let me tell you, this case is a fabulous work of engineering. And for anyone that's ever worked on it knows how easy Height has made it to cable manage and work with. And this is exactly why my experience swapping in and out the parts went pretty smooth. And while working on the computer is really easy, the aesthetics of the case is also on a league of its own. And because this case is on a league of its own, it deserves some of the nicest parts in the book. And we couldn't forget about some simple cable extensions, leading us to this. Now, if you have eyes as sharp as these, you might have noticed that the card looks a bit different from before. You see, as I was working on his computer, he asked if I'd trade in his 5070 in for one that I had in stock. I told him of course, and I showed him my options along with the pricing for each one. And while he didn't make up his mind the first time I wrapped up his PC, he eventually came around and told me he was gonna trust his gut and go with that 5070 Ti. And let me tell you, I do not blame him because that card was nice, man. It was just a nice, very luxurious, very appealing card. In fact, I really wanted to see what I could cook up with that card, but in the end, I have way too much inventory to be worrying about that right now. So me and my customer both left happy. Little did I know that this happiness wouldn't last long, because about a week after I put his PC together, he told me that he was experiencing these awful stutters, and they would go as far as affecting his audio. The thing was, he was unsure what could be causing this problem, and he went as far as troubleshooting the computer himself.
I got this!
But failed. The only hint he did have was that he tried turning off and on his system multiple times, and on the 10th attempt, when he thought everything was fine, it stuttered yet again. He also said that the stuttering was a bit random as well. I mean, he could leave his whole setup literally doing nothing, and then when he would come back into it, he would see the stutters. As bad as the stuttering was, that wasn't the only problem he faced, because he got this message saying that there was an overcurrent problem with his motherboard. And because this was the first time I ever encountered this message, I did a bit of research, and apparently it had to do with a USB device or something pulling way too much power from his computer. And so after hearing all of that bad news, I was like, bro, just bring it in. I'll try to see what I can figure out, and I'll troubleshoot it myself. And so the troubleshooting began. At first, we suspected it was either the motherboard, the USB hub he was using, or the BIOS that I got installed for him. But after a full day of testing, no matter how many different things I tried or turning off and on the computer, I wasn't able to get a single stutter. On top of that, I also tried filling the I/O on his motherboard with a bunch of random peripherals. I'm talking about random mouses, random keyboards, random monitors. And after plugging all of those things in, I tried turning it off and on multiple times to see if I would get that random power issue, but there was absolutely no problem at all. But because his computer was running perfectly before he ever swapped out that case, we wanted to be safe, and we ended up reverting the BIOS back to the older version. And you might be thinking, well, that's silly. Why would you revert something that the manufacturer gave out to fix problems, right? wrong, because a single peek into this Reddit thread will give you an idea that MSI has been having problems of their own with this specific motherboard and BIOS. This Reddit post basically goes over the problem somebody has had with this specific motherboard and the newest BIOS, as you guys can tell from the date right here. And as you can see, he goes over several issues, and after updating the BIOS, you can see a lot of the issues that he talks about, he says are not fixed. And then if you scroll down, it has a bunch of upvotes, but it has a lot of comments too. So this gives you an idea that this can be a problem for a decent amount of people. So many issues with this board reported, and MSI is doing near nothing to fix any of them. They just keep piling up. I know this from my personal experience and losing hair. Really annoying issue which took me months to figure out. Do you think, and this last one right here, do you think MSI will fix this? No. On top of flashing the BIOS back to the older version, we also decided to stop using the hub that he was plugging in all his components into, because that was probably what was causing the power issue. And after making these little adjustments, I'm glad to report his computer has been running smooth, leading us to our next adventure. In the last episode, I wrapped up this PC with an i9-14900K and an RTX 5070. And after finishing, there was only one thing left to do. Sell it, of course, and so I got it listed. And to my surprise, it wasn't long before somebody reached out saying that they wanted to check it out. And so after agreeing on a time, we met at my house where we tested it out and finally purchased. In total, this PC ended up costing me $1,150 and I sold it for $1,750. Now that is some pretty nutty profit, but it was only possible thanks to the good deals I got before. And with all that money, we can't just leave it in the bank. No, we have to continue going crazy. Ain't that right, boy? Bro, Rocky, come on. Ain't that right, boy? Bro, come on, man. Stick to the script, man. Ain't that right, boy? Ain't that right, boy? All right, matter of fact, I know exactly what we'll get into lock in. Ain't that right, boy? Attaboy. Dang, he almost bit my finger off. And that opportunity came when I saw this CyberPower pre-built. And this was exactly what I saw. So right here we have the computer I was just talking to you guys about. So you can tell CyberPower pre-built, $1,400. There's nothing interesting about the title alone. But if you go down here, this is where it gets a little bit interesting with the 7800X3D. And the 9070 XT. And then to give you guys an idea of the actual price of this brand new, it goes for $1,900 at Best Buy right now, without taxes, of course. And looking at the price at Best Buy, you would think like, oh, this is a killer deal. I'm gonna go check this out right now. But no, we negotiated the price a little bit further and I brought it down to $1,250. From there, we met up at my house and landed yet another pre-built. Remember how clean the Black Beast was? Well, as clean as it looked, I knew some cable extensions wouldn't hurt. The thing is, I didn't go with the standard black or white cables. Instead, I got a mix between the two. Now, the reason I went for these black and white cables was because the PC isn't fully blacked out and it has some slight touches of white thanks to the flaps on the fans. And when it arrived, everything was going to plan until I got them installed. You see, when manufacturers say they have white products, that doesn't mean they're all the same. Because each company uses their own paint and dyes, this can lead to slight differences in the actual color. I know it might be hard to tell on camera, but the cable extensions definitely have a bluer tone, with the flaps on the fans having the warmer tone instead. And while most people wouldn't give a damn about this little detail, it definitely did bother me. And so I had to switch pads. Similar to the Beast, this next one also has some little details that bothered me. To start, this computer came with a 9700X, but it came with a B650 motherboard. Now, because the B650 is on the older platform of AM5, I thought to myself, I think a 7700X would make a bit more sense. Even though there would be no performance difference from swapping one motherboard to another, people tend to fall for this fallacy that the higher the number, the higher the performance. So I kind of play into it when I'm picking out my parts. And at this point, I had already pulled one out from this white PC, so I might as well get it installed. Now, this computer also came with a bronze cooler, but it seemed out of place. I mean, the motherboard was mostly black with little hints of silver, the RAM was black, the case was black, and guess what? The graphics card was also black, but absolutely nothing was bronze. So in order to fix this mismatch, I looked into my inventory and I was lucky enough to find this Corsair Capolix. And let me tell you, it was the missing piece to this puzzle.
In episode 7, I said this.
This is episode 8 of Flipping PCs, and trust me, I'll hit that backflip before the end of the series.
Usually what I do is I include little bits of me trying to do a backflip in the intro of the video, but because I chose not to do it in this episode, I just chose to do a little snippet of me actually practicing. And as you guys can see, we are at this random place called Flipping Out Extreme, which I literally coincidentally found because if you look over there, nah, you guys can't see that, but it says Spirit Halloween. And that was where I got the little wizard hat for this scene right here in this video. And so the plan is to just go in there, try to do a backflip. If they let me record, that will be great. If not, you guys will know I'll at least be making progress. And so it began. And the first thing they gave me were these grippy socks. After putting them on my feet, I asked one of the workers what trampoline he would recommend to try to learn a backflip. And he told me I could give this one a shot. But when I got there, I saw this gut-wrenching message. But we stayed hard. I got a feel for the trampoline and finally went for my first attempt. It was a lot easier than I thought, I'm not gonna lie, and so I went for another one. And that was when it all came crashing down. I'm just kidding, it's not as bad as it looks. From there, I just kept failing and trying to get the form right, and eventually, it hit. But not for a single time, no, I went for a second one. Boom, 2. All right, can we get one more? Can we get one more? Boom! Yes, that one counts because I didn't fall all the way.
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
With that out of the way, we have made $830 in profit, leaving us with this amount. Till next time. Bye. To move out is a goal of a lot of teenagers, including myself, but I want to do it by flipping gaming PCs. And let me tell you, I have a lot of them, but what I don't have a lot of is time because this is my deadline. So let's get right into it with this mini PC with a hole. A hole, yeah, so this is a PC I purchased for my local group for a great price. I mean, if I didn't get it for a steal, I don't think I would have gone for this, but I'll let you decide. So this mini PC came with the 5800 XT. I thought this was a GPU, but apparently not. An 850 watt power supply, a Cooler Master case, and an ITX motherboard. Oh, that's right, keep this between you and me. 32 gigabytes of RAM, shh. I'm not trying to get robbed here, man, chill. But anyways, I paid $200 for this bundle, but it was missing the GPU and SSD. So I waited patiently to find them, but in the meantime, it needed some work. And the main problem was the cable management. You see, my hands are pretty average, maybe even smaller than most, but even then, I still struggle to get the cables right because it's so dang small. And don't get me started on screwing in these fans. Bro, this dang screw, bro. I swear if I didn't have strong forearms from deadlifting, I would have been screwed by a screw. And as for the missing parts, I eventually got my hands on a 1TB SSD along with this 3070 Ti. And in the end, I paid $500 for it. And just like that, I got it listed for $700. Now, somewhere around this time, I got a message from a past customer. He told me he wanted a crazy build, and this was his budget.
Here comes the money! Here we go!
So I showed him what I had, you know, the options and all of that, and he really liked this white PC I have behind me, but he didn't like the 7700X it had installed. He said, and I quote, "Definitely am willing to wait for one of the good Ryzen 3D CPUs because I didn't have any in hand." So I kept my eyes peeled and eventually found Black Beast from the last episode, and it had one of the good 3D CPUs he wanted so badly. So I purchased it. After buying, I offered it to him just in case he was interested, because it would obviously save me a lot of time if I didn't have to move the parts from one computer to another. But in the end, he told me he still liked that white PC a lot more. And so I ripped the CPU out of the socket and got it installed. But I told him that I still needed to do some other little changes before I could get it sold to him. He said that was fine and he was willing to wait for it. At this point, there wasn't much left to do with the computer. It was just the cable management, installing a contact frame, and replacing the fan on this computer because, yeah. After finishing, I sent him a message, but then he told me he was out of town until September 16, and he kindly asked if I could hold it for him. Now I told him I couldn't do that because it was over 2 weeks away from that day, and I didn't want to do that. But here's what I could do. List the PC at a high price, and if it didn't sell by the time he came back, I would sell it to him at the original asking price we agreed on. But as time went on, I got a few messages, but no one truly interested. And then came September 16. There was nothing. There was no hi, I'm back. Can you give me an update? There was nothing, just silence. And then came September 17 when I grew impatient and I sent him a message, and just like that, a ghost appeared before Halloween. Luckily, I had somebody who didn't end up ghosting me. So today, someone wants to stop by in around 30 minutes to come check out this computer I have back here. And then the one thing they did ask for me to do is just have Apex Legends and some benchmarks ready. So I'll have the benchmarks ready on my USB drive, but the game's ready on the Steam one. So that way I'll just quickly get that running on here. And hopefully it goes well. I'll try to record the interaction, but can't guarantee it because some people aren't comfortable with that, but I'll ask them. Other than that, I can't sell my computer looking like this. I mean, there's nothing against the fit right here, but you gotta look presentable, so ain't nothing wrong with putting on a nice outfit, you know, before you get something sold, so that way people know that you're standing on business with these things. And I take my job seriously, building computers and selling them. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna be doing, and I'll update you guys in a bit. And just like that, changed into a more presentable outfit. You know, I don't really got much drip. It's just a Nike shirt with some black pants. Nothing crazy. It's just more presentable. Just loaded up Apex Legends right here in the mini monitor. And hopefully we get a sale. And like any other conversation, we yapped a bit and I answered all the questions he threw at me. He told me he was coming from a gaming laptop, so I knew the difference would be night and day for him. And after testing Apex Legends, we secured the sale. Sold! Let's go! And with this PC, we made $350. With that money in hand, an opportunity came my way. Alright, so some guy just reached out and then he wanted to trade his computer in for one that I had in stock. And then I was talking to him. I told him I would think about it, but if I'm being honest, I was gonna pass on his offer to trade his computer for mine. And then the next day he was like, "Oh, do you buy PCs too?" I was like, "Yeah, of course." And then he was like, "How much would you pay for mine?" I sent him my offer. And so now I'm gonna go check it out right now. And then hopefully it's running good. Hopefully it's not a scam or anything like that. Seems like a cool dude. So let's see what happens. Got my shoes on and see what happens. Alright, so we just made it to the guy's house, but I'm not going to record anything because I don't want to leak his address or anything like that. So I'll show you guys later. So I'm at a gas station right now, as you guys can see, but I did indeed buy the PC right here. And everything went well. I'll show you guys a bit more about it along with the price when I get home. We are home and here it is. You guys can see we have an interesting case, and it even has this little flip out thing like you would see on a phone or something. But let's go over what it really has. It has an Ultra 7. It also has 48 gigabytes of RAM, which is interesting as well. Usually you see 16, 32, 64, but this is like a weird pattern, you know? And then look at that speed, bro. 8,000 megahertz, bro. Don't mind this, bro. Damn near malware at that point. But 2 terabyte hard drive. But here, as I showed you guys earlier, we have the RTX 5070 Ti. And as for the price, I paid $1,200 for this PC. And with all the PCs I buy used, the first thing I do is clean them. And while it wasn't that dirty, I try to always put on a mask so I don't contract the newest disease in 2025. But I'll admit, I sometimes forget. Not this time though, and I got it clean. After cleaning, I decided that this PC needed a downgrade, and the 2 downgrades were for the RAM and the graphics card. With the RAM kit, we went from the 48 gigabyte Speed Demon RAM of 8,000 megahertz down to 32 gigabytes of Golf Card Speed RAM, along with this downgrade to the graphics card. But there was a problem. Yo, take a look at this gap right here, bro. I don't even think you could fit a penny in there, to be honest. Thankfully, it wasn't as hard as it looked. All I had to do was crank it about 67 degrees, and now all that was left to do was to reset and test rows.
Now that we listed Rose, it was time to move on to Garfield. And this is an orange PC I purchased in the last episode, and as you can tell, I really wanted to swap the case on it. The thing is, after seeing how nice the motherboard is, I thought that this PC had to be special and wanted to put it in a more classy case. Sorry Sama SV02, it just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? But this build will again have to be pushed back to another episode, just like the other 3 or 4 in the rotation. We'll get to them eventually.
But in the meantime, I got this interesting message. It seemed like I had a buyer, but didn't know much about computers. Because of this, he kindly asked if I could send him the specs, and I told me he would type it into ChatGPT. This was a bit weird, but hey, you gotta respect him for being honest. After doing so, he tried to barter me down to $750, but in the first weeks of listing a computer, I always stay firm like the hair gel I used to use to rock a mohawk in elementary school. But if something doesn't sell after that, then maybe I'll consider dropping the price. Because I recently posted it though, I told him I was firm and we eventually met up. I ran it through all the software, how to keep up with the updates, and of course tested. And finally, ending up with the sale. Now it makes me wonder, what did ChatGPT tell him about the PC? Who knows? But we weren't done there just yet, because I also sold the mains gear PC from the last episode, and to keep things short and simple, I agreed to meet him at 1100, met up, and again sold another PC. This left us with a profit of $844, leaving us with a grand total of $9,165 of our 20K goal. Thanks for watching, and the next episode will come out a lot sooner than you might think, so be on the lookout, and peace, Bruda! So yesterday night, the dude that I got this computer from messaged me saying if I was down to do a trade with him. So today we're gonna be on our way to go trade it. Hopefully everything goes well. I got a message from the dude that I traded in this 5080 PC for. Whoa, what does he mean by breaking software? Welcome to episode 12 of Flipping PCs until I can move out. My goal is to make $20,000 and I want to do all of this by the end of 2025. Wait, it's 2026, isn't it? Yeah, it's no surprise we've been cooked, but we'll keep pushing. And the first PC we'll push out is this Alienware pre-build, because out of nowhere I got this message. Would you do 1300 cash in hand? If so, I can pick it up today. And I told him I was firm for now, and then replied, okay sir, can't hate me for trying. I'll pick it up after work if that's okay. And just like that, we had arranged a meetup and finally sold the PC. Now the profit was terrible and only made a soul-crushing $130. And a lot of you guys might be thinking, man, that's not bad at all. Well, let me run you through the rabbit hole I went through to get this PC, starting with the drive. No, not an SSD. I'm talking about driving a car, and it took me around 30 minutes to get to the seller's place. And after getting there, you of course gotta spend some time testing the PC, unless you really trust the seller or are lazy. But in Las Vegas or Sin City, I've had my fair share of adventures that taught me to test every PC I want to buy. So I tested the parts starting with the CPU, and I ran the testing a little longer than usual because word on the street was that these i9 CPUs were frying left and right, thanks to the microcode problem from the motherboard. And apparently once they were damaged, there was no bringing them back. Luckily, it worked great though. Now, the next part of buying a PC is negotiating, and I spent a bit of time telling the guy that his PC was dirty and had damage on the case, you know, to drag the price down. Well, none of it worked no matter how hard I tried. It was really like talking to a wall, so in the end, we agreed at $1,200, but we already spent at least 30 minutes testing and negotiating for the PC. And then came the drive back. Remember how I told the guy the PC was dirty? Well, that might be an understatement because this was one of the dustiest machines I touched in 2025. Look at that. It's terrible. Bro, I'm sorry you guys had to see this, but it had to be done. Like, what is that, bro? And then there's gonna be a little piece flying out the case right here. And look, bro, ew. Not to mention, I had to watch several tutorials just to take the computer apart. And after cleaning came upgrading. Now, it had some strong parts, but the RAM kit was an oddball. Just imagine having a top-of-the-line i9 CPU and an RTX 4080 and 32 gigabytes of RAM. But when you check the speeds, they are capped at 4800 megahertz, which is bottom of the barrel or the slowest speeds in DDR5. Luckily, I always keep some gold stashed away under my bed for tough times, but I later learned from experience that this Alienware computer only works with the RAM Dell creates. Sounds like a trashy business tactic, doesn't it? And let me tell you, these sticks were not cheap. Keep in mind this was like way before the RAM shortage, so I don't even want to check it right now. But because of this, I decided to keep the same Booger Green RAM sticks and added a terabyte of storage to bump up this number. Now, to not bore you guys, I also wiped Windows, installed drivers, BIOS, and tested the PC, and finally sold it, which involves other leeches that eat up your time like binge watching your favorite show. And in the end, I added all that time with my handy Rolex to this. So now let's see how much we've made per hour. About $20 per hour while risking over $1,000.
No.
So now you see why I couldn't accept $1,300 for the PC. But of course, I wouldn't be doing this if the profit was always like that. If it was, I might have stayed at the nearest grocery store pushing carts. So let's talk about Nar? How do you say it?
Noir.
Yeah, I had no idea how to say it. I just thought the name looked pretty cool. So I built this beast a long time ago. In fact, I had it for sale for a grand total of 180 days. That's a lot of time, and the market was slow for a big part of the year, but I'm gonna keep it a bean with you guys. I can't blame it on the market when I was also slow to putting in the work. Nevertheless, I did learn a valuable lesson here. You can have the nicest looking computer out there, but if the parts don't match with the looks, it will be hard to sell it at a good profit. To give you guys an idea, here were the parts I chose to go with it: a 9600X and a 7800 XT. So if I had to redo it, I would have left this project for a computer with a 7800X 3D, an RTX 5070 Ti, or something along those lines. But because we kept reposting it, slowly dragged the price down, and the RAM shortage, we eventually made $288, but please don't be stingy like me. If you have to take a small profit or loss, get rid of it and just try to learn what you can from it. So yesterday night, the dude that I got this computer from messaged me saying if I was down to do a trade with him, and he wanted to get this white PC that I had in stock in for his. And it took me a while to think about whether it was worth it or not. You see, on paper, his PC was better, I'm not gonna lie. It had an Ultra 9 275F along with a $1,000 graphics card. But there was one thing his PC lacked: the aesthetics or the good looks. To give you guys an idea, here were the photos he showed me, and these were the photos I had on my listing. So this made the decision just a little bit tough, but in the end, I woke up the next day and I told him, let's do it. So today we're gonna be on our way to go trade it. Hopefully everything goes well. And so I packed up my PC and headed over. And just like that, we got our hands on this NZXT pre-built. Fortunately, after a couple days, I got this message while I was eating my food. Hey, how you doing? Could you send me your phone number? And then he was asking me like icebreaker questions, you know. Then he finally says, I was going to tell you, my guy from NZXT told me he forgot to remove the NZXT security software. He said it's software fragile installs. And then he proceeds to ask me another question about the PC, like completely changing the subject. And then I was like, whoa, what does he mean by breaking software? Okay, bro, it's a bricking software they use. From what he told me, he resells them and he usually removes it, but he wasn't able to get to it. Not sure if you're okay with that, but he did tell me that the software is still installed and it's a possibility I can get bricked. So this already had me like kind of feeling a certain type of way, because it seemed like he had already heard about this information before and he was just telling me now after we got the PC traded. And then I was like okay, what does that mean, or what does he mean by like work are fragile? Like I was just trying to see what was the core behind this, because based off that I'm thinking like, oh, this is gonna be something sketchy. Like why would he tell me this afterwards and not right now, right? Or right when I was getting the PC. And I asked him about this fragile thing, but of course I was impatient. And then because us Gen Zers always have our phones with us, I ended up doing a bit of research about what the company was. And in it, I found out that fragile is kind of like the debt collectors for NZXT. So let's say you quote unquote rent a computer or lease a computer in some way. I'm not sure how it works exactly. That company, Fragile, will take over that debt. And I guess it will pursue you with charges and this and that about your computer. And then I was like, did he not tell you this before he sold it to you? That's fucked up if he didn't, because he might have gotten scammed, right? But he said he did mention it to him, but he didn't know that it was a software that was still installed on there. So even that's sketchy, because he didn't tell me anything about this, like at all. And then I was like, is there any chance you can call right now? And I called him, and then he was just telling me that it was just weird and that he felt bad that I would get the PC, that it could get bricked. But at the end of the day, after we called, he was offering me to get the computer back. So he's gonna bring it here and I'm gonna get the computer back. But yeah, that's a situation we got into ourselves. today. And so I was back to square one, or maybe -1 for the waste of time. Not to mention, I also had to wipe this PC because his files were still in there. But here's where it gets weird again. He later told me that the NZXT guy that messaged him sent the bricking software message to the wrong guy, and the PC we originally traded was completely fine. And after telling me this, he asked if I wanted the PC back, but at this point, I was still suspicious of the whole thing, and so I passed on the offer and told me he would try to sell it and then buy my PC. I said that was fine. Alright, so editor Jose here, and I was just looking through the whole footage of this section, and in hindsight, I can admit that I was wrong here because he asked me like for advice on listing his computer for sale and told me as soon as he sold it, he was gonna give me the cash to buy my computer. Now, thinking about it, why would I be okay with somebody else selling a computer that I wouldn't buy because I know that there might be this bricking software on there? If it ever happens again, I'll make sure that before I give him an estimate on a price of what he should sell a computer with this weird thing on it, I would first tell him like, hey, make sure to let them know that there might be a bricking software on there. So yeah, I just wanted to give that quick note. And he eventually got the money and bought it from me in cash. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I was leaping with joy when I finally got it sold. But then, bad news hit again about 2 days later.
Hey, this just happened, bro. I was playing a game and this thing just went to a black screen.
He said that there was a random buzzing coming from the graphics card and that it had black screen. After some back and forth, we confirmed that the GPU noise was in fact coil whine, but the black screen was an entirely different story. We weren't really sure what it could be, and we just decided to hop on a call to find the problem. While calling, I just told him to go to the event viewer. This is where Windows posts error codes and help messages can be found for your PC. And the one that kept showing was this kernel power message, and it said this. After seeing it, the only thing that came to mind was that the PC was maybe not getting enough power because it said power. I know, genius over here, but I also thought it could be like a loose cable somewhere around the case. But after the call, we just shrugged it off, and later it happened again. But this time texted me with disappointment. I'm not liking this, man. I paid $1,900 and it's not working how it should be. So I offered to pick up the PC and pay him back the money that very day. In fact, that very hour. So I went to the bank and then to the dude's house to pick up the PC. I told him I would try my best to fix it, but understood if he didn't want it anymore. But he told me he still wanted it and not to sell it. And so I had to meet up with this dude and try to fix it as fast as possible. Now, when I try fixing a problem with a build, the first step is always replicating. By seeing it happen in person, I usually get little clues as to what might be causing it, and so I spent the first day trying to get the black screen to show. But there was nothing. I tried benchmarks, games, leaving it on, but never once did it black out. The next morning, I gave up and went back to the event viewer to see if there were any more clues. There weren't any obvious ones, but I did some research on the power message, and I learned that they can show up when someone turns off their PC by holding the power button down for a couple seconds. And I know I do this a lot because I found plenty of those codes on my own PC. So I thought that was caused by the buyer doing the same. Sadly, that wouldn't explain the black screens he got, but I still asked him if he did this, and he revealed he never turned it off by pushing the button. This left me flabbergasted, but thanks to that, it led to my next investigation. You see, I tried to line up the times of the black screen messages from the buyer to the time on the error codes on the event viewer, and found that these two kernel power errors lined up perfectly and were followed by a bug check error. And apparently, this message had to do with hardware incompatibility, faulty device drivers, system services, and whatever else this means. And like always, YouTube University had my back and found this video. It basically had me run through a couple command lines that were meant to repair corrupt files for Windows. And I was sure I finally fixed it after seeing this screen, even though it never black screened on me. So I told him about this message, and he said he would call me that very day, but I never got it or a message back. And after 3 days, I texted him with more updates for the PC and asked if he was still interested in it. He finally replied and told me he was, but had left town for Thanksgiving. So I trusted his word and waited until he got back. Interestingly, he also asked for the RTX 5070 Ti from the PC I bought from him in the last episode. This was a weird request, but I think he just didn't like the coil line from the card. So I agreed to sell the card to him and send him photos of how it would look before installing it, just to make sure he liked it. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I sent him these photos the very day he came back, and I should have sent them sooner. But anyways, after sending them, he left me on red for 2 days and again had to step in and double text him. Alright, I see that you aren't interested in the PC. I just need the box for the GPU and the other boxes that I forgot to get the last time. I can stop by whenever you are free. But after he saw this message, he left me on red again until the end of the day. Now, to give you guys a bit of context, this message was sent somewhat early because I couldn't sleep the night before. This was because I was thinking about the whole situation. Yeah, it got that bad. I usually go to sleep at 12 a.m. and wake up at 7. But this time I woke up at around 3. Couldn't go back to sleep because of it, and so I just went to the gym. When I was wrapping up my last set there, I sent him this message at around 5:30, all to be left on red until the end of the day at 8 p.m. And when he eventually replied, he told me he was going through these health problems, but honestly, I didn't buy none of that, and I'll explain why. You see, we are both in a community group that posts computer stuff. Posts can range from computer sales to people looking for help and gossip, you know how it goes. However, the day before, he made a post promoting his internet service because he was a salesman for the company, and with it, he replied to around 40 people, and so it annoyed me. Like, he responded to all these people, yet chose to see mine and leave that till the end of the day. Like, come on, bro. And so when he responded, I ended up confronting him about it and asked him again to let me know how he felt about the PC, and finally told him to forget about the box if he was truly in a bad spot. And after reading the message, he again left me on scene, and after an entire week, I sent this message. It was meant to be passive aggressive, I'm not gonna lie, even though it might not seem like it. I'm gonna be blunt and say that I am in the wrong if he is truly sick, but I guess I'll never know. With that out of the way, let's sneak in one more sale. This was a PC with the 7700X paired with this beauty, and together it sold for $1,180. Thanks for watching and hearing my pain or mistakes on video. Till next episode, peace. From getting 3 sales to getting an interesting trade offer and finally landing a jackpot on an item more valuable than gold. Welcome to episode 13 of Flipping PCs Until I Move Out. Last year I failed to make $20,000, but that doesn't mean the goal stops there. $20,000 by mid 2026.
Let's go.
Starting off with the pot of gold I found in my room. So right here behind me, I have a bunch of RAM kits, and these are kits that I've kind of piled up over years of PC flipping, and then I always just kept them in this little box. But now, since RAM prices are literally through the roof, I think now is the time to sell them. I kind of picked out the ones I wanted to keep, and these I'm gonna test them out and then make sure they're running, and then I'm gonna try to list them on eBay, see how that goes. And so I spent the first few days testing the sticks, but in the meantime I had to fix a problem. You see, I turned on a computer that I put away for a week or so, and it gave me this weird message: couldn't connect to the network, keep your device on and we'll look for a solution again in 30 minutes. Oh, never once did it ever do this when I used it, or when I was testing it and I was about to give it back to the guy. Like, at all. If I have to take a guess, I'm guessing it's a software thing, because I tested this thing so thoroughly the day I got it back from him, and even 2 days after I kept trying and literally nothing happened. But then after like a week or so, I'm restarting the PC and it's giving me some errors, and then it's telling me it's trying to connect to the internet to find a fix or something. I don't know. You see, in the last episode, someone bought a computer from me, but he experienced issues along the way, and after taking it back and testing it for like 2 days, it was fine. In fact, I was so sure it was okay that I was getting ready to hand the computer back to him, but that ended in bad terms anyway. But now the problem was on me, and my suspicions were right, because after wiping the system clean from the customer's files, windows, and everything else it had, it ran perfectly. And I'm not saying this loosey-goosey, because I tested the system consecutively for 4 days, and I even tried powering it on after like a week or so to make sure that weird message didn't show up again. I know I told you guys that I spent a long time testing the RAM sticks. The first day was by far the busiest, because in this RAM testing arc, like it's an anime or something, I got a trade offer that wasn't one of these. Or in other words, a crappy trade offer. I'm in the middle of testing this mini PC with a bunch of different RAM sticks, as I was telling you guys. And then I'm also testing out this monster PC, right? Now I'm trying to do this both at the same time. But in between all of this, I got a random message from a guy that was trying to trade his PC in for mine. And that would be this baby right here. So this is one with a 14700K into the 9070 XT. And what he offered is pretty insane, but we'll see how it goes, and I'll try to record. Okay, I won't leave you guys on the hook here. He offered me a computer with a 9700X and an RTX 5070. And I think that's a great deal, since I had mine listed for like 1600 with these specs. So I was hoping with a little bit of elbow grease, I could get even more. And so I packed up the PC, the boxes, and finally headed over. And usually I don't like recording in other people's houses, you know, it's their place, not mine. But I did get this little clip after asking for permission. As you can see, we ran stress tests on my computer, and of course we tested his while we were at it. As far as the other PC, I didn't tell you guys, did I? Well, he offered me this piece of junk and I didn't spend any more than 5 minutes testing it. Like, what can it be worth? A can of Coke and some gum? I just made sure it turned on. But anyways, I paid him his money and packed him up. All right, so this is a setup. This is how I'm gonna take him home. As you can see, we put this seat all the way back so his computer doesn't move side to side or anything. And it's kind of the same method over there, except over here I scooted up the seat. That way the computer doesn't move, but there's always a chance something breaks. And so I drove back to my 5-story penthouse, but I still had to finish some errands with these dang RAM kits, bro. Thankfully, after a couple days, I finally got through the annoying RAM testing arc. All right, it has been a couple days since I first started testing the RAM kits because it actually takes a lot longer than you'd think when you're testing them, around 2 hours each kit or whatever stick you're testing out. As you can see, we have DDR4 right here. We have DDR5 right here. Some are already in the packet ready for shipping. And this is the last kit I'm testing. Now, these are the unfortunately bad kits right here. As you can see, I marked them with the X right there, and yeah, these all turned out pretty bad. But yeah, nevertheless, I did find a surprise. So one of the kits that I thought was 16 was actually 32. I just didn't read the tag right. And then another one that I thought was like 64 gigabytes for 4 sticks, it ended up being like 128 gigabytes for the whole kit. So yeah, we're gonna make a lot more money with that. Yeah, we're finally done with this very intensive process. And even though it took forever to test all of these kits out, I've only listed like 4 up for sale, and I've been procrastinating with the rest of them. The good news is, out of the 4 I did list, they literally all sold, including the 128 gigabyte of DDR5. But this listing right here is slowly making me regret my decision. Like, if I would have waited a little bit longer, I would have made $300 more. Like, bro, like... But at that point, it kind of starts feeling like stock trading, like you're chasing the top right before the crash. And I'm not trying to be there when it crashes, if it ever does, you know. You never know with this DDR5 RAM shortage thing. But now let's talk about the traded PCs. You get it? Stock trading, traded PCs. So they were both pretty dirty, but you guys know that's nothing out of the usual in this channel. Oh, look. There's even a little tornado of dust right there. But I see the vision the seller was going for this build. A little RGB there, a little RGB here, some nice components, and boom, you have a masterpiece of a gaming PC. The only catch is all it takes is one mistake and you might create the next atomic bomb. Yeah, the seller didn't create anything that crazy like gigabytes power supplies back in 2021, but I did notice something else. Alright, so I just got done taking little videos for you guys to see the computer, but after I turned it off, I noticed that the fan blades were off. You see, the way fans are facing inside a PC controls how air is moving in and out of a case. Usually, you like to have a little more air coming in than out, but here, all 6 of the fans were pulling air out, or in other words, exhausting air. And while this would tank temperatures in most cases, here it's probably alright because there's like a massive gap in the case where plenty of airflow can come in and out. Either way, we'll fix that later, but first, let's clean it. And with some movie magic and a little bit of the elbow grease I mentioned earlier, we transformed this PC along with this piece of junk. But since I've been hating on it so much, let's give it a chance to see what this PC has to offer. Alright, so right behind me we have the PC I just cleaned, and it's a pretty cool one. It is old, but it's like kind of in the generation when they were implementing all the cool stuff. For example, this motherboard has like 8 RAM slots, and what's interesting is that this is an i7 5000 something, right? But it has DDR4, so this is probably one of the first generations that got that DDR4 upgrade from the past generation, right? The parts are pretty cool, you know. It's cool to take a look back at history and kind of see what they went through to slowly develop. Oh, and talking about the features, man, I keep yapping, but this motherboard literally has little switches on there. So for example, if you want to enable XMP, like right without even touching BIOS, you can do it on here. There's like so many little things that you're like, dang, like what happened to that innovative thing in new motherboards? Like people just stopped caring, I guess, and it made sense for them to stop using it, but it's like cool to see now when they went through the phase of trying it, you know? But let me turn it on and give you guys a closer look because I did take a bit of B-roll. Yeah, the fans do ramp up. And oh my goodness, I forgot to plug in the dang GPU. So that's probably why it's on red light, but anyways. And if you guys couldn't tell by now, I love older parts. In fact, I started myself with a Dell Inspiron, and it had like an i5 4460. And that CPU was terrible, but I still loved it. But because I've already rambled so much about this older PC and its features, I didn't know if I should leave this last one in there, but I'm like, screw it. You guys will see it. In the case, look at this feature right here, man. Look at this feature. You can literally put your... This is like a spot to put your headphones. Matter of fact, look at this. But as cool as the features were, it didn't change the fact that his computer was old and it needed a makeover for sure. So I needed to lay out the game plan for Project Odie. First, I needed to replace these black fans because not only did they not match the color of the front three, but they weren't RGB. Next, I needed to downgrade the storage and RAM because they clearly are a price commodity in this era. And finally, we need to do some reorganization with the cable management and fix the orientation of this liquid cooler because it currently looks like mom's spaghetti. And with the game plan, it was time to execute. And after wrapping up Odie, I had to open up
The tornado of dust.
Okay, that name isn't fitting anymore, but I haven't thought of one just yet. We'll figure it out eventually, but let's go over the game plan. First, I want to replace the 9800X3D with a 9700X. You see, this black piece from an earlier episode had some ridiculously powerful and classy parts, with the exception of the 9700X. So I chose to swap these two CPUs, but before I went to repasting it, I had to fix the fan layout. Boom. From there, we installed the cooler, some thermal paste you wouldn't find on your toothbrush, reinstalled the RAM and the RTX 5070 to create Project Neo. And after wrapping it up, I got a message from a buyer, but it wasn't for this build. It is December 12th on a Friday, and I literally woke up probably an hour or two ago. Somebody messaged me saying they were interested in this computer I had listed, and unfortunately, this is how my room looks right now. Yeah, it's a bit everywhere. It's a bit of a mess, I'm not gonna lie, but the guy wants to stop by in about an hour, so I'm gonna get everything prepared. And I don't even have the computer right here. As you can see, there is this white one right here. So I'm gonna go get it from my little desk or table, and then I'll start testing it now just in case I find an issue. I'll let him know as soon as possible. And then he just told me to have some Steam games ready, so that's what I plan to do. Alrighty. Alright, so here's the PC. It is very dusty. My parents are remodeling the house, so I had it covered in a plastic tarp. But yeah, it's still dusty, so I'm gonna get that clean and then get it ready for the guy. And so I gave the computer a complete wipe down for the dust, updated the BIOS to the latest version, and the drivers right before he got here. You could check those parts or whatever you want. Have you had a computer before?
Yeah, I had a 3070.
Yeah.
So like a Ryzen 9 5900X, and then I sold my computer.
While here, I told him the history of the computer and eventually tried to run the finals, but he quickly told me he trusted me. So I showed him how to take it apart, clean it if he ever needs to, and finally loaded it into his car with the payment in hand. But the selling didn't end there, and in a state of shock like a fish, I sold Oldie as well. Literally like the day it was listed. Alright, so it is the day after Christmas. You know, your boy is looking a bit more plump than usual, you know. That's what happens after Christmas. I got a message for this computer that I literally posted last night on Christmas. So yeah, I was a bit bored towards midnight. So I listed this one along with the other one I had ready to go. And yeah, it was a dad and his kid. He wanted to check it out today. They're gonna come by like in 15 minutes. And as you can see, I've been running the CPU test just to like triple check that it's running and all that. And yeah, it's a really cool build. I really like the way this turned out. And then for $300, like, bro, like this is pretty cool. And yeah, hopefully we get the sale. I mean, I say hopefully get the sale, but it almost always sells. Like the moment somebody's here at your house testing a computer out, unless there's something like wrong with your computer, they'll probably say yes. Did you guys check out any other computers?
I had messaged another person.
Yeah.
But they hadn't reached back out yet. So you're the only one that reached out. The first person that reached out back.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy. I just posted it. Like,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because I kept looking through it. The one he was gonna get had a keyboard and a mouse included and everything. It was like $380.
What do you guys need so far? Like the
well, he needs everything still. He needs to get the monitor, screen, the monitor, the mouse and keyboard.
Oh, okay. I think I might have something.
Yeah? That'd be awesome.
I'll take a look. Is it updated? Hopefully it's not big like 23 hours, man. What the heck? I just test computers on here.
Dude, I want to test this computer. Oh shit, it's 3 in the morning.
Yeah, sometimes I dabble in a bit too much.
Yeah.
What are the colors these change to?
So these fans, these all are paired together. And you could change, I have to open the computer, so.
He'll show you. You should leave it like that. That's like the heart of the computer, just say that.
Oh yeah, that looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like blue and red?
First PC of a lifetime.
Yeah. I had have you seen those office computers at your like school's library?
Yeah.
I had those when I started, man. It was pretty cool though.
There's like a big keyboard with like a lot of buttons.
Yeah.
And then there's like a big screen.
That's
one that I have at my
Now I want one.
You might just take this one off.
I'm gonna take that one. You're gonna have to find your own, buddy. Gives me an excuse to spend it on a PC for myself.
Wait, is it still recording?
Yeah, it's still recording. I could turn it off if you want.
No. I'm gonna watch it later.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I have a YouTube channel where I basically talk about what I buy and sell, computers and stuff.
There you go, bro.
Yeah. So you'll be on there.
There you go. Now you can get his YouTube channel. You can check it out.
If there's anything wrong, you can say like, this dude scammed me. You're right there. And shortly after this, I gave them a free mouse and keyboard. Nothing fancy, just enough to get the job done. And paired with that, I sold them a 165 hertz monitor for $50. And finally, the last sale, Neo. All right, so somebody wants to stop by in like 30 minutes or so, and he wants to check out this PC, which I literally just listed like today. Like it was that quick. And he kind of wanted this computer with the RGB fans in the bottom, and then I told him that it wouldn't come until 2 days, and so he was like, it's fine, I'll just put him on myself. And so yeah, he wants to come check out this one, but as always, my room is a bit of a mess. It's kind of everywhere right now, so yeah, I'll have to fix that before he comes. And after cleaning, I set up the PC and got it ready for him. He'll be like, I forgot to put the SSD in the video.
Yeah, nah, no worries.
I had so much time to, it's on me.
That one at Walmart is just
And I'm not gonna lie, I made a big mistake here because I literally forgot to put an extra terabyte of storage that I put in the listing before he got here. Thankfully, the guy was very patient and he let me install it while he was here. I was also able to help him troubleshoot his daughter's PC. You see, throughout the conversation, he kept saying that he gave his PC to his daughter, but it was having problems.
I was wondering if my daughter's computer, because I got the 4 sticks in there, if that's possibly causing it to crash.
It won't cause anything to crash, there will just be less performance. But you could try it. And so towards the end, he asked if I could hop on a call with him. And then I was like, yeah, that's cool. And apparently after running OCCT, the CPU was running at extreme temperatures on the home page. And so I ended up finding like a tube on my inventory of thermal paste and I just gave it to him. Oh, and of course I sold the PC. Bro, look at this big bag of 20s. And that would wrap up today's video with a profit of $1,000, leaving us at $10,833. Till next time. Alright, so in episode 6 or a while back, I made a goal of trying to do a backflip. This is episode 8 of Flipping PCs, and trust me, I'll hit that backflip before the end of the series. That is basically to go along with this theme of this series where I buy and sell computers, or flip computers. That now makes sense. Flipping computers and doing a backflip, right? Yeah, I've been slacking the last 2 episodes. I haven't posted an update and I haven't forgotten about it. I just kind of a mix of being lazy and time. But I didn't want to go to the little bouncing park, but now I'm just gonna do it here. And been watching a couple tutorials. Basically, he said to lean back, hit the side of your palm. Hopefully I don't put my hand on anything sharp, but we should be good. We got one. My dog's staring at me like a lunatic, but I'm seeing little dots in my vision right now. Guess that's normal when you're going upside down. Okay, that's the way. Over there. Another guy on the YouTube video did a combination where he did 2 flips back to back. It was like, that was 2. If I'm being honest, if you just commit fully, to the backflip, you'll do it. Cause there's the worst case scenario, I know if I commit fully, I'll land on my knees. I won't hit my neck or anything. But I think the problem comes with if you don't commit fully to the thing, that's when you're gonna have problems doing a backflip. But yeah, let's get more practice in. Oh, fuck my headphones. It's scary, man. You got, I guess everything. Scary is scary. Remember, if I full commit, I know I'll do this. I'm getting terrified, bro. I ain't gonna lie. Rocky, no. No. Oh shit! Oh shit! I did it! I did it! Not perfect. Not perfect, but okay, I got the balls to do it now. I got the balls to do it. And again, I'm seeing little dots. Little dots, but we broke that barrier, so now we just gotta keep hammering. Up. All right, matter of fact, I'm confident next time I do it, I'm gonna get that backflip in. But for now, I'm gonna drag it on just a little longer, but yeah. Like, bro, I broke through the barrier of doing a backflip without getting momentum, so that's a massive win. Now it's just a matter of landing it. Yeah, I broke that barrier and we'll have to get that. Maybe some episodes soon.